Oh, share. So before we watch the video, let's check this handwriting of this guy so we can make up our mind. Screen share. Okay, so you can see the handwriting.
Right. This looks
I
like
don't
a
know,
pretty good
have you seen, by the way, the video or haven't yet?
Yeah, I watched the video. So
yeah. So yes, so this is basically printing, which of course we know that it removes much of the upstroke of the cursive writing.
right.
And has a lot of downstroke. The control strokes are out of balance in relation to the upstroke. And we know that it corresponds to repression. Yeah. If you tell me if you are not agreeing with me, that's all I see.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
And additional repression also shows that sometimes he tint to the left with the handwriting. He slants like these. If you can see the D slightly, and that D has some problem on its own.
Let's take a look.
On the top, George.
No, just a little bit. Yeah. I think that's probably.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe. Can
yeah.
be.
Let's see if there's another example. Is there another D in there? I was looking for a pattern.
Yeah, it's not too much to work on.
There's just one other D to go on. Yeah, it would probably because the slide.
Yes, there is another D actually. Look here. Find and
still, okay.
Yes, there is another D.
Yeah. That looks more or less in line with the rest of the writing though, kind of. But what is interesting is the fact that he deliberately makes the size of what should be upper zone letters. He's making those the same height as middle zone letters.
Yes.
I mean, he deliberately made that D small in order to fit it into the same space as the letter N that's next to it.
Yeah, so immaturity, yeah. But
yeah, for sure.
Have you checked out this boy? It's I think he's a teenager. So for him, it's fine.
Yeah.
I love when I see this handwriting with adults. I always have that saying in my head. Have you heard that? You are young only once, but you can be immature forever.
That's a funny one. I'll have to remember that. That's a good one.
But for him, it's fine. It's he's just a young boy. He's a teenager, so it's fine. Yeah. And we shouldn't expect much of teenagers. So for me, it's a lot of repression. So she calls the space between the letters a sign of being analytical.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Yeah.
I saw it and I developed my own opinions quite immediately, but I forget exactly what it was. But yeah, the space between the letters is not a matter of course, as we know. That's not what determines the analytical ability. Although you'll find some old graphology writings, like there's a book about handwriting samples of the saints or something like that. I've got this very old book that he mentions something like that when it comes to one of the priests or whoever it was he was analyzing, and then he immediately vetoes that by saying in a later handwriting sample that somebody else who was writing a little bit more closely, they were also analytical. So it's like you can't have both ways. So it's not. No, it has to do with where you're putting yourself in relation to everybody else. Extroverts like to write on top of each other, with their letters on top of each other, more or less. Individuals who are definitely energized by other people in the presence, you'll find that commonly with politicians. Do that quite a bit. Extroverted politicians, which majority of them are. Bill Clinton has letters that are very close together. I forget what that guy that we analyzed last week was. He might have had his letters close.
So what do you think that is when the letters are very close?
It's a lack of analytical capability. It's there's some individuals who have thinking not necessarily as a primary capability, but sensing or intuition is primary, but thinking is secondary. They will, in some cases, deliberately stack their letters very close together, okay? And as far as I can see, it's for the deliberate purpose of repressing logic. And those individuals, I mean, when you repress logic, which would normally be the secondary capability, when they do that, something else has to take absolute primary capability, which is either sensing or intuition. I find ENTPs will often do that. ENTPs, Myers-Briggs, that is, have intuition as a primary capability, thinking as a secondary capability. They will often write with their handwriting very close or even intersecting. Intersecting writing is really the actual repression of logic, but it's also the springing forth of intuition and just allowing the intuition to run rampant, which works quite well if you're interested in coming up with interesting ideas of how to do certain things, how to think outside of the box. I like to think of the analogy, coming up with 10 ways of putting an elephant inside of a tree. It's like, leave it to those kind of individuals to come up with silly stuff of that nature. Whereas those of us who are a little more grounded and analytical, who know that it's not possible to do things like that or practical, we're not likely to be encumbered by that type of thinking. But it's a different sort of science, a different type of thinking, or a different sort of brain process, I suppose. So in this case right here, the intersecting letters and that, I mean, it's a less than logical individual, but somebody that might come across as being logical, when it's necessary, when they feel it's needed. But at the same time, logic is not primary.
Okay, this you should remember to mention when we actually watch the video. I will pause it where she says he's analytical, because he's not. I couldn't really translate what's the space in between the letters, but the space between the words, it's an additional sign for repression. And for me, it looks like that the repression is likely to help him to stabilize the outer personality so he can function in a day-to-day activities. You can see the letter O's are all pierced. Here we don't, maybe we see it here. Here I can only find one. I think this one as well, we will close up on that. I think that's one as well here, but I'm not sure. We will see the video. And okay. But he's a teenager, and the teenage years can be very stressful because he's in the transition. So I don't know, whatever we interpret, I think we shouldn't really always deal with the teenagers, but let's do it because
we'll go easy on him because of who he is. I mean, there's with this particular individual, he
has 3 million subscribers.
Oh
this
my goodness.
little boy, he's playing on the Nintendo or PlayStation, something like that.
Oh gosh. Well, whatever works. I guess that pays the bills probably, or comes close to it. Not too many YouTubers that actually make a living with it. Doing just that. But hey, if you get 3 million subscribers, it means something. So yeah, that kind of an individual. I mean, if he's a teenager and he's writing like this, it's very likely. I think I might already know his personality type, and yeah, it's going to be one of those things that just takes time. He will likely not actually ever mature, just simply get older, like you were mentioning earlier. But this is okay. This is all right.
Tommy Hint. I will check it for you and I'll show you. Do you want to see what he does, or it's not important? Maybe it's better if
we
you
can
see
what he
it. Play.
does. We can probably see a couple of things.
I wrote a song.
So there he is. I don't know what he's doing.
No, my God! It's fine, isn't it? It's weird. Jump in the Cadillac is fucking worse, man. I was gonna say it's worse than that, and
So, yeah, that's what we are dealing with. That's another one. So you see that he's playing, and that's what they do.
Hey.
My son, once he was 16, that's the videos they used to make with their friends.
Stick with me. No, don't go near that, man. Ninja. I'm gonna give you a brief history of the server. Oh! Don't fucking punch me, you know.
See? How many? Oh, no. Sorry, I was wrong. He has 11 million subscribers. 11.
Wow. This video here has 26 million views. Tommy Innit and Ninja.
Okay, so let's see Leah's.
To analyze Tommy's handwriting for a while now. Last week, or at least a week ago from me filming this video now, he's playing Minecraft with George, and George is giving him like some tips and tricks on speedrunning, and Tommy gets out a piece of paper and starts writing and shows us the piece of paper.
See, she will not pick up on these, this O here, this.
Yeah, the stab arrows.
Yes. And even this almost. So the
Right.
E is weird, of course. So all circular letters, basically. This would be.
Anything involving communication is kind of defective as well as, I mean, they've got defective isn't the term.
Yes, by the way, it's I think it's a general among those people who are on the
Right.
PlayStation. I don't know what's the other. I only know PlayStation. What was the other I mentioned?
I don't own Nintendo or
Oh,
something. like that.
Nintendo.
Is that-
Yes, I don't know if it's
Oh,
still
okay.
something what exists, I guess.
Yeah. Whatever they all are. I'm not sure what they are.
Let's get into the writing. So first impression, chaos. Let's break down what I mean by that. The baseline is pretty chaotically wavy. There's also pretty chaotically inconsistent space between letters. So chaotically wavy baseline, which means emotionally ungrounded, chaotically inconsistent space between letters, which indicates the writer goes between feeling emotionally in touch and completely overwhelmed. But I will say that most of the chaos is happening in the middle zone. It doesn't really go into the upper zone. For example, he's got these like weird R formations, these like really awkward E formations, these chaotic A formations. Everything's kind of messy since it's in the middle zone. And the middle zone is like the zone that represents how you act socially, how you act in your day-to-day life. This means he's gonna act pretty socially chaotic, but it doesn't go further than that really into the upper zones. So that means it's not like he has any chaotic or disturbing morals, which is a good thing. But yeah, he's gonna behave very unpredictably socially in his day-to-day life or when he's hanging out with his friends.
Press the button on the deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna press the fucking button if you won't leave me alone, you stupid son of a bitch. Make me get out of the vlog, good bitch.
And now I know a lot of this chaotic energy that
It's
I'm
not
picking up
it's
on
not like
has
something
to
that's
do
very dangerous, but other than that, I mean, you know, it's not like that, but definitely a tad bit too spontaneous, likely to get in trouble, you know, that kind of thing, or find themselves in circumstances where they might get in trouble.
Well, especially because
So-
the defiance is there as well in the writing.
Yeah. And reactive as opposed to proactive. Definitely that. Reactive versus proactive.
writing quickly. He's trying to take notes really quickly. So we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt on that when like tallying up everything when we do our conclusion. But nevertheless, the chaotic energy is still very much there. This writing, on the other hand, is actually quite round. Roundness in writing indicates creativity as well as being a bit immature. Also, having really middle zone dominant writing is another indicator of being a bit immature. So that's 2 immature traits and a lot of chaotic traits. He's got a pretty low to mid T-bar. Where you put your T-bar represents how high or low your self-esteem is. So that means he has a fluctuating to average self-esteem, which is like very normal for teenagers and humans in general. So nothing to be concerned about in my opinion. But what really stuck out to me is this F. I have never seen anything before like it. This was a trait that I had to look up off camera before filming this, and oh my gosh, I looked it up and it is the Tommiest of Tommy traits. Let me tell you what it means. So normally people who write cursive Fs, it looks like this, right? Tommy, on the other hand, writes his Fs like this, where it goes down, back and through. So doing your Fs in this first way indicates that this is a person who, when executing a plan, will do some preparation, do some planning, do some analyzing in order to set themselves up for success. But this person, on the other hand, this person is someone who sacrifices analyzing things for just having the confidence that things will turn out. So to give you an example, if these 2 people have a test tomorrow, this person is gonna study, and this person is just gonna have confidence. They're just gonna go in there and do it because they believe in themselves. But now I can't say that Tommy's writing suggests that this confidence over analyzing is
This cannot be interpreted separately. So whether the person will study or not, that also depends on the thinking pattern. The other letter, I'm not sure if it shows confidence. Actually, I am sure it doesn't show confidence. That this letter F, it's not a sign of confidence.
No. I think I know what she's talking about though.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting where I'd like to know where she came up with this this definition that she has here, but in a backwards way, she's right about that. But it's just that I don't think that that's entirely the correct interpretation of the letter. But in this circumstance, with the individual that she's talking about, there's a merit of correctness there. So I'm interested on that.
Yes, but we only understand her because we know where she's coming from. The word confidence just hurts my ears. Yes, I understand where she's coming from. What she said indicates that she read about it, but her interpretation of the definition is not correct. What we see is really an unbalanced F. It is unbalanced in a way that corresponds to a person who is relying on or achieving through the application of force and effort. In other words, he prioritizes brute force over analyzing or being precise. This, however, far from being confident, it is more to do with the lack of planning, especially if we see the whole picture, the rest of the writing.
That's correct.
His whole personality, because his letters are pretty disconnected, and this suggests someone that is analytical to a certain extent, but this confidence.
Okay, for me, that's definitely not analytical. For me, analytical seen in the M's and whether we see any triangle shape pointing to the baseline.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the space between the letters, I mean, and particularly being the fact that these letters there's no pattern to any of it. When there's no pattern to the writing, there is no ability There is no basically no analysis there. It's a different, basically there's a different form of proficiency there. Analysis has to do with thinking capability. This person is reactive only. I mean, some of the letters will touch, others won't. Basically, there's nothing there that it's almost the opposite of analytical capability, even without looking at the M's and N's. I mean, and the M's and N's don't feature anything in the way of analysis either. I mean, but there's nothing there that's in the way of analytical capability. He might try, if we could call it that term, he might try to analyze something, you know, on the spot, on the spur of the moment. He might accredit himself with some capability, with some newfound capability, if somebody was to spring something on him.
He definitely does a good job in making all these videos and presenting them in a way that people are signing up.
Absolutely.
But I've seen a lot of immature people who are able to do that on a day-to-day basis, but they still don't develop a kind of a thinking which sees forward in life.
Right. This is not forward thinking at all. So yeah, it's a lack of analytical. Water, that's a bucket of water. So that's supposed to be an R. It looks almost like halfway in between you and something else. The way that he makes that R for water is another definition of something that's basically not, you know, it's a total lack of or repressing of the thinking patterns. You know, an R should be nice and, you know, a little bit more clear and distinct, and that's just, I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely not a letter R.
Yeah, that's strange. It's when something normally would end with a V shape at the bottom and they still choose to curve it. It's lack of analytical ability because they just so don't want to go there.
Right, that's correct. I mean, it is a lack of analytical capability, and particularly beings, the thinking pattern itself is not, it's not clear and distinct. I mean, if it doesn't have that, then the thinking is being repressed in exchange for something else.
Okay.
Regarding the letter T that we saw earlier, of course the T's in the lower zone, and I mean crossing in the lower zones, that's quite common with the individual that we're viewing here, and that's one of those things that might go away in time. It's not necessarily something that is going to go away. It might go away with this particular personality type. She assumes that it will, probably in part because with most people it does, but there are those individuals of this guy's personality type that will always hold on to the low T-bar. And in fact, I know some that are in their 40s, the T-bar literally crosses into the lower zone and even makes basically a different baseline to where the T-bar will literally cross over and become part of the lower zone, the bottom part of a lower zone letter, and then that letter literally picks itself up over and above the T that's next to it. So that's, I mean, I've seen that even among people in their 40s.